there, friend. Welcome or welcome back. I'm Monica Brooks, a multi passionate entrepreneur who at times still has no idea what I'm doing with my life, but I choose to show up and keep going each and every day. I'm a former corporate girl who thrives on leadership, improving my life, and I love talking with people. On this podcast, you'll hear stories from people who will inspire you and challenge you to grow in ways that may feel a little uncomfortable. Whether it's by starting your own business, learning how to fail and fail fast, growing within a company, or maybe even showing a little bit of grit in life, you'll hear from an array of people that will leave you inspired and encouraged. Out of all the podcasts that are available, I'm glad you chose to listen to this episode today. Let's get started. All right, so I am doing this introduction after I just finished editing the podcast, which I'll do from time to time just to listen to the interview so I can prepare you as a listener as far as what to expect. But after talking with Jason, there's so many good points mentioned that, as you can see from the title, I just called it Real Talk. It wasn't just one thing, it was so many things from his personal life, his family life, work, all of the challenges that he has experienced and how he continues to overcome them. All of it was so real and from the heart. So, whether you're walking in your car or working out, I want to introduce you to Jason Daly with Anchored Leadership. Welcome, Jason, to the podcast. I am so pumped to have you here today.
I love to reconnect. Just awesome to be with you, Monica. It's so good to see you again.
Thank you. And the way we know each other is that we work together. And you coached me in so many ways as a leader through a leadership program for high potential leaders. That was an amazing thing. And then, I see you on LinkedIn, and we have both since left and we're doing our own thing. But I want to back up because
Hmm.
you're a licensed speech pathologist. And now you're running your own business on coaching. You're coaching executive leaders. You've had over 5,000 clients and leaders that you've coached. Tell me about you, how this transformation happened in your life and how you got to where you are today.
Mm. Wow. Okay. So to be brief, thank you. It's so great to see you. I have so many
Thank you.
things I want to share with your listeners about my experience of working with you, of which I'd say so much of my work that I get to do as an executive coach and consultant, I get to learn as much from my clients as they may learn from me. Right? It's like,
Yeah. Well, I think that's
there's so
like
much to
even
learn.
parenting, right? Like parenting, we learn as parents, but man, we're learning from our kids as well.
Are you kidding
Like we're
me?
helping.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah, if I can get it right 2 out of 10 times as a parent, that's like Hall of Fame for
yeah.
me. I mean that, I really do. Yeah, so, gosh, trained as a speech language pathologist, in undergraduate, my undergraduate degree is in communication, and I realized about my senior year at Ohio State, I'm not really willing to go and help people spin up a great PR campaign if I don't believe in the messaging. And I'm not saying that's what PR folks do, but that was my personal epiphany. And so I started to dive into communication, and I started to come across career opportunities around communication sciences and communication disorders. And I fell in love with how the brain works and how the brain is working all the time to figure out how to communicate the clearest. But most people don't communicate very clearly, myself included. I just started thinking about my career path as a young speech pathologist and didn't really see many of the leaders that I worked for showing up very inspired. And that was a part of what I just noticed and observed. And so when someone started to tap me on the shoulder and say, "Hey, we think you may actually be a candidate for the leadership track," I started going, "Well, what are my other options here?"
That may not sound appealing to some people. Like,
Yeah.
no, thank you.
Yeah.
I know what I want to do, and this is not it.
Yeah, and so the way that I ended up, I mean, long story short was, so I jumped out of speech pathology. I moved into corporate speech pathology, which was helping business leaders use their voice in a way that was impactful and engaging. And so airplane every other week, traveled all around the globe and delivered 1 and 2, sometimes 3-day workshops for intact teams, but also individual leaders across multiple industries, Fortune 100 companies. And that was awesome. I love that work. I love the clients. It was so much fun working with people who had so much capability, but it came into a values conflict with my family. I was
Tell
gone
me
all the
more.
time.
Oh, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
gosh. Well, I mean, there's two stories I'd share that a lot of people have heard. One of those is these aren't stories that I'm proud of, but these are stories that are what I call crucible moments, and that I help my clients, executive coaching clients, sort of work through in their own right. Um, my wife and I led a small group together when we lived in Atlanta, and it was on Monday nights, and so we jumped into it with 2 feet. Yeah, this is exciting. It was through our church. And what I will say is I was probably able to be there about 50% of the time. And so it left my wife holding the bag on leading our small group.
Mm,
And that was the first inclination, or the first hinting of, oh my gosh, like there's a challenge here, which is I like what I do. I'm good at what I do. This is the business model and this is the requirement. And there's just a conflict with what it is that I want to be committed to outside of work. Fast forward, we then started a family, had a daughter. We have 3 kids now, 8,
mhm.
3, and 22 months old. I was in Toronto. Our daughter was probably 15, 16, 18 months old. I got a phone call from my wife. I got the 3 phone calls in a row. I'm leading a workshop. There's 10 people in this workshop. And I'm like, okay, I got to take a break at a time where there's not a break. So I took a break. I called my wife and she said, uh, I think our nanny's having a heart attack.
Oh, dear.
My wife was at work. She's an occupational therapist. She's at work. And I said, well, what about Josie, our daughter? And she's like, I have no clue what's going on. And all I could say to my wife was, okay, there's nothing I can do from here. I've got to get back into my workshop.
Mm,
And it was the phrase she said next that felt like I was in the most trouble I'd ever been in my life. And it wasn't a threatening thing. It was probably a phrase of desperation. She said, "We have to talk about this when you get home.
mm,
This is not working."
mm. That was
And
probably a moment for her to really say, okay, I've seen this. This has been going on, but now this is like, wow, we've crossed a boundary or
yeah,
this line, and we need to talk about this. So,
trajectory, right? It's like, hey,
yeah.
if we're going to continue down this path, that we all have to make concessions, right?
Mhm.
We all have to make concessions. And so I'm not like, look, it very well may work for someone who's gone all the time for work, and they're not at home much. So the point is that we were in a season of our life where it was really hard. So it turns out the nanny was having, I think it was a panic attack. It wasn't a heart attack, but my wife walked into the house. There are 3 firefighters, 2 tending to our nanny, and 1 upstairs with our daughter trying to console her.
Wow.
And so that one sort of, it still haunts me to this day. And so anyway, what I knew then was, okay, work's really important to me. I've got some things I want to do career wise here, but I have to figure out how to do that with conditions that don't just leave everybody and everything else in the dust.
Hmm.
So I don't know if that's where you're going with, where you wanted to go with that, but that's a bit of my story. I left that role not knowing what would be next. I
Hmm.
did some contract work. I did some soul searching. It wasn't always pretty. It wasn't always clear. And then I ended up back here in Columbus leading some of these programs,
Hmm.
that the one that you took a part in, and working for the best leaders I've ever worked for ever in my life.
That's amazing. And I think, with that question, it's always interesting to see where people start
Mm,
and where they are at now, because sometimes people hesitate to make a change, to take that leap into something completely different.
yeah.
And you just have to do it. And you look at how you've evolved over the years, and now you have your own company. You're the CEO and founder of Anchored Leadership.
Mhm.
So when I see speech pathologist
Yeah.
and I see Jason today, that is not the same person.
Mhm.
And it should never be for any of us.
Yeah, that's right.
And yeah, so you have evolved into this. You've taken a lot of risks. You have learned a lot of hard lessons as well. Probably some painful lessons, as it sounds like in Toronto.
Oh, so painful. So
So
many
did
painful
so
lessons.
did you tell the audience? You said you'll never forget your audience's face. Like, did you tell them what
Yeah.
happened?
No, no,
Oh,
a
okay, okay,
part,
okay.
and here's why. A part of that deal was, you don't let them see you sweat. You don't let them
Yeah.
see you sweat. So I was helping people learn how to communicate more effectively, presentation skills, executive presence, strategic messaging. And I still do that work today, just I would say on a deeper level than what we did then. But it was very much, and part of it too was I hadn't stepped into my own confidence as a human being fully. I was a young professional at the time, and that was 13, 12, 10, 11, 12, 13 years ago. And now it's like, hey, I'd still fight this, but it's like, I had to cancel a breakfast this morning. I have a sick kid. And, I had to sleep in a room last night, and I texted my client. I said, I can't make breakfast tomorrow. And it wasn't running the risk of, oh my gosh, this is going to jeopardize my relationship with him. He's paying me money to coach him. But instead it was like, no, this is a part of the priority stack that I have to pay
Yeah.
attention to. Yeah.
And I think, going through COVID, it reprioritized a lot of people and their priorities and realized at the end of the
Mm.
day, we're just humans. We're
Yeah.
going to have sick kids.
Yeah.
We're going to have arguments. We're going, like, things are going to happen. But I think it's made us all flexible and adaptable because we had to be during the pandemic. There
Yeah.
wasn't anyone that said, I'm going to do things my way. Like,
Yeah.
no, like you had to wear a mask and
Yeah. Yeah.
you couldn't go into the office, all of those things. And so it's, sometimes you'll have a kid jumping on your back. Like I remember that during meetings, it was like,
Yes.
but that was just the norm. Like that's just called life. And
Yeah.
that is called living it. Like
It
it's the
is.
reality.
And that often like served as the lighter moments of the pandemic. My
Totally.
daughter army crawling across the floor to get her Legos in my office, and me just laughing and being like, you can stand up. It's okay.
Yeah.
And the client being like, who's this? I'm like, this is Josie. This is my daughter, right? It's like, yeah, the
Yeah,
humanness of it.
exactly.
Yes.
We're just human at the end of the day. And you mentioned communications, and clearly, I think our listeners will see how well you do at communications because you're so articulate and so well spoken. But I thought I was so well spoken before I was coached by you. And I
Mm.
will never forget this thing I signed up for that I regretted immediately that you held. And it was where you recorded us presenting. And if that wasn't bad enough, we had to then watch it
Yeah.
with you and in front of other leaders as well. And I feel pretty confident in my speaking and what I do, but I
As you should.
remember, thank you. One of the things you helped me with was eye contact because I felt like I did really good connecting with my audience and looking
Mhm.
at them and scanning the room. And that was such an eye opener because I truly wasn't connecting with people. Like I needed to get in their space. I
Yeah.
needed to make sure that they knew I saw them.
Mhm.
And so it was a really intentional eye contact. It was more than looking, moving your head back and forth at the crowd. It was like, let me connect with you with what I'm saying right now and get in your space. And that has always stuck with me and I use it
Mm.
today. So that was
Love that.
extremely helpful.
Well,
Yeah.
I think I want to say a couple things about that if you don't mind. Like
Sure.
first is, the seeing thing. So seeing people, well, there's a statistic out there. It's very staggering. The average attention span, sustained attention, and there's a lot of different types of attention. I won't get all speech pathologist-y on you, but the average sustained attention span for adults is 8 seconds.
Hmm.
That's it. And by the way, that's a 25% decrease from just 20 years ago.
Wow.
So the people, the leaders, the human beings who will stand out they've got to be able to do two things. They have to be able to pull people out of whatever is distracting them in the moment.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of ways to do that through the words you use when you're communicating. But there's so much that has to do with how you communicate it, right? Your voice, your body, and seeing is one of those things. So think about it. I mean, if the moment that like I sit down at the dinner table and I start checking my phone, already my kids are experiencing me not seeing them.
Yeah.
Now, okay, and again, just want to say I'm not awesome at that. I have to be disciplined about it.
Mhm.
But the ability to look at someone and actually get deeper than just a transactional, I'm looking at you,
Yeah.
has the opportunity to shift the interaction completely. Whether it's in a partnership or a marriage or with your children or in that presentation or speech that you're giving, that the person all the way back in the back of the room could feel like, I am working to see you. It's a
Yeah.
game changer. It's a
Yeah.
game changer.
It's possible that we've lost podcast listeners within like this episode. I mean, like, are they still
Yeah.
listening?
They're like, I don't
Like,
know, right? They're like flipping through their phone. They're checking social. I get
yeah.
that. Hey,
Yeah.
wake up, pay attention, listen
Yes,
to
yes,
this.
this is good stuff for you as well. We see you.
Yeah, that's right.
That's one of the
That's right.
things I think that I've learned as well as a leader is making sure our teams feel seen as well. Because I talk a lot about being in the business of people. So no matter what industry you're from, we're all working with individuals. We are all, in a way, a leader, whether that's leading ourselves through something or leading other people, and making sure that people feel seen and people feel heard is so important to build that relationship. And when
Yeah.
you build that relationship, we're building trust as well, which I believe you're facilitated also in to talk about building trust. Was that right?
Yeah.
One of the
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
ones you
Yeah.
were? Yeah.
Yeah, building trust. So I work with individuals and teams, and the way I kind of say it and talk about it is, in a world where we can be encouraged, no knock on this, but to take a strengths-based approach, lean into your strengths. Totally get that. I also know too that the things that trip me up and will trip me up as a business owner, as a leader, as a coach, as a father, are the liabilities. So whether I know about them or not. So if I don't know about them, they're blind spots. If I know about them, I'm not working to change them. Those are the things that will keep me from getting where I want to go.
Mhm.
And so I always think about, let's work on helping expand the range of the individual executive coaching client I'm working with, which means it's varied what I'm helping people with. For teams, I just say it always comes back to, can I trust you? Can I work with you? Can I provide feedback to you? Uh, can I trust you to lead us where you want to take us? If you're the leader of the team. And that's what I've basically committed my career to going forward at this point in time. And it will evolve. You and I have talked about that, but
Mhm.
that's the essence of how I help leaders and teams at the moment.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about Business Made Simple. We talked about that briefly, but maybe is this something other people could benefit from?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for
Can
sure.
anybody do this? Like anyone who's trying to be a better leader or anyone who wants to start their own business? Just tell me more
Yeah.
about that. We've touched on it, but I don't really get the whole scope.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so it's interesting. So Business Made Simple it's an online learning platform by the same team who created StoryBrand. So StoryBrand is a marketing and advertising framework that uses story to help you sell more products, services, whatever it might be, to do business with more people. And Business Made Simple is the company that Donald Miller, who's the founder and CEO, propped up, where there are about 250 certified coaches who are certified small business coaches. So what's interesting for me is, as a small business coach, I might not work with the same kinds of clients that I'm working with in a corporate leadership space. But what I found was Business Made Simple offered a platform that helps me glue together some of what I do. So I help basically people, let's say a small business owner, I help them understand how to operate their business like an airplane. The
Hmm.
goal of any airplane is to fly far and fast if it's a business. And so you need to have wings, you need to have engines, you need to have fuel, you need to have someone leading the plane. And so the way that we coach this is, there's 6 frameworks that every business owner needs. And I'll say this, whether you're a small business owner, Joe's Painting, or whatever, if you're a corporate leader of your division, you still need to know where you're flying your airplane. And so 2 workshops I love doing. One is called Business on a Mission. We just changed the name of it, but Business on a Mission, which is helping teams come up with a mission statement, key characteristics, which some people call these core values, but this is different. This is like, what are the operating principles about who your team needs to be and who they need to become in order to fulfill the mission? And then the other part of that is critical actions. What the heck am I supposed to be doing on the daily or on the weekly that helps propel the mission forward? So a lot of directors, vice presidents, EVPs come to me and they say, I know that I'm not helping our team reach their goals, and I'm not sure why. And the first question I ask is, if I went to the person who's the newest to your organization and asked them, are they clear on what they're supposed to be doing and what they're responsible for? What's the answer to that? And they're like, yeah, they know. And I go, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being super, super clear, how clear? Usually it doesn't get above a 5.
Hmm.
I go, all right, so we got some work to do. So Business on a Mission helps clarify that. I'm actually doing one next Thursday for an executive team of a nonprofit,
Oh,
and
cool.
I'm super pumped. I'm pumped because the team's going to get aligned so that they can move that entire company's mission forward. The other one I do, and then I'll stop talking about it, is one called Hero on a Mission.
Okay.
Hero on a Mission is a personal mission. In other words, it's really coming up with a life plan for your life, to know, you know this from the Covey stuff that we
Hmm.
facilitated. Covey does an 80th birthday party. What would people say about you at your 80th? Hero on a Mission actually has you write your obituary or your eulogy. In other words, what is it that you want people to say about you when it's all said and done. And so then we reverse engineer your life according to that and say, well, what are the domains that are most important for your life? And it helps people get really clear, really fast, and somewhat painfully on what they're prioritizing and what they want to be prioritizing. And so, right, it's a full system for businesses, but it also hits people at the individual leader level, which I
Well,
absolutely
that's
love.
I think that's the beauty of it because this is work is what we do, leadership,
Hmm.
corporate, but then we still have our lives. Like what
Yeah,
type of legacy? And I love talking about legacy as well. What do we go? We all have death in common.
yeah.
And so what are we going to do before that? How are we going to leave a legacy? What ways have we touched the lives of those around us? Like you
Mhm.
mentioned, to where at our 80th birthday, what are they going to say about us? What are ways that we've helped them? What are ways we've made the world a better place, whether that's big or small?
Mhm.
And that's the reality of, in my opinion, why we're here
Yeah,
is to
yeah.
evolve. Like we
Mhm.
need to be able to evolve in our skills, our relationships, and to grow and to learn and to just make the lives of people around us better in some way.
Yeah.
And it's such a selfless thing to give of our time to help others. And
Mm.
whether that's volunteering, whether that's helping them with a skill or just their general growth and development, I think
Yeah.
is so important. And it's interesting, Jason. I want to ask you this because I am facilitating the 7 habits in a couple of months to a group of leaders.
It's awesome.
And I'm going through the information and it is so good. And I pause because I'm like, oh shit, I need to be doing that. Like I've
Oh,
lost
yeah.
track. Like I can teach you how to do it, but sometimes when it comes to personal application, I have to like look in the mirror. Like you're not doing what you're saying. Do you ever find yourself in that situation as you help other people?
More than you ever would know,
Okay.
which is why, seriously, I am actively engaged with a counselor for my own self, right? Individual counselor, marriage counselor. I work with a coach. I've got mentors that I rely on because it's true. One of the hardest or harshest things I could hear is that someone who loves me would say, "You're not really practicing what you preach." That's really hard to
I'm
hear that.
guilty. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
so true, especially if
and
someone
it
else notices it. It's one thing if
uh,
you do, but if
and
like
it
you
is
get called out, like, oh shit, they're right.
yeah, and it is absolutely true. And so, like we've heard the old adages like could you imagine working with a personal trainer who just wasn't very fit,
Mm.
or I know doctors, I know there are
Oh
probably
yeah.
doctors who smoke, but like a doctor who smokes, like
Yeah.
I get it. I totally get that. So I'm not placing judgment on other people, but I am constantly aware of this. And I'll tell you one place where I really fall down. Uh Personally, and I joke, you've heard me say this before. I feel like coaching is easy in many respects. I feel like leading and facilitating, great. I was up on stage in front of 150 people on the West Coast sales team last, I don't know, 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I was nervous, but I was ready to go.
Yeah.
Um, like that stuff doesn't phase me. But when my daughter is talking back to my wife, and I'm like, oh, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is the chance to choose. In that choice is our freedom. It's a Viktor Frankl quote.
Right.
Usually, like I said, 8 times out of 10, I am coming at her and reacting instead of responding. I'm not
Hmm.
breathing. I'm in fight or flight. Yeah, you better believe it. I mean, and that's the work. I mean, that is the work. Like I never pretend and imagine when I'm coaching someone that they are coming to me because I've got it figured out.
Yeah.
I just would say I'm uniquely trained to help people sort through their own stuff. And
Mm.
I equally need someone to stand shoulder to shoulder in my life, multiple people to help me sort through my stuff.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
beautifully put. In one of my interviews with Johnny Scott a couple of episodes back,
I heard
he's a,
it.
oh, did you? He's also an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, and I
Yeah.
asked him like, do you ever pretend to have it all figured out? And it's like, no, like nobody has it figured out. But sometimes because we don't have it figured out, it stops us from taking a step forward in the direction we want to go.
Yeah. You want
Like,
I'll yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, working through counseling, when I left my W-2, okay, I did that a year ago, right after,
mhm.
a year after that.
Yeah,
And I knew like that was my plan for a long time. As a matter of fact, I was on another crucible moment. I was on a plane, a train ride from New York to Boston in 2012. Manhattan skyline was fading by the side. It was beautiful, and I just felt miserable. And it was because I was a newlywed leaving home again to go work, and just feeling the tension. I wrote a new bio for myself 10 years down the road. So for 2022. And it involved much of what I am doing now.
Mm.
So the power of intention, the power of clarity, the power of dreaming big. Hero on a Mission is that workshop. Um, it was just a really big moment for me. And so the ability for me to get clear on what's not working for me, and then the power of intention was really critical. You said something that spurred a thought though, where I was going with that. How
Hold
did you
on.
say it?
It
Johnny Scott.
was
Oh, Johnny Scott. Yeah. So when I left my W-2, I knew that that was the plan, and everything that I was doing in that W-2 job was on point and on mission with that team and that organization. Had to be. That was my responsibility. But my boss was such an amazing leader. He knew my dreams. He knew my dreams. Kurt, love you,
mhm.
Kurt. I mean, still just an amazing human being.
Even before we started recording, you were already talking about
I
Kurt
know.
Russell. Yeah.
And Shelley and
Yes.
Jason and Alice. Like
Alice,
I mean, the
yes.
best team I've ever worked with or on. Like, and they were like peers, even though they were my bosses. So what I will say is every assignment and every responsibility I had, I believe they had in the back of their minds, how do we help Jason be ready to run his own business? And 2 jobs ago, I overstayed my welcome probably by 18 months out of fear. But the fear was like fear of retribution.
Mm.
This job I left out of fear of leaving a nest that was so comfortable and had so much autonomy and had so many awesome leaders that I got to work with, that the question I was asking was an excuse. It was with my counselor. Gosh, how do I provide for my family? How am I going to swing this? I'm so terrified. We have 3 kids. We have a son with special needs. Like, gosh, we'll never qualify for insurance. How are we going to do this? Probably going to make too much money to, get any uh, uh, marketplace plan subsidy, blah, 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 blah. And my counselor said to me, Jason, what if such a coaching moment? What if you're asking yourself the wrong question?
Hmm.
What if you're actually asking yourself, how will I provide for my family? When the real question is, how much will be enough? So you don't recreate patterns of the past, which are working, 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 and lowering the prioritization of your family.
Wow. Such a
And I didn't,
powerful question. Wow.
yeah. And I didn't believe, I'm like, you're full of crap. Like, easy for you to say, dude, like, you don't have to build up the pipeline. You don't have to pay the bills. And he's like, I get it. I was angry. I was pissed when he said that. I was pissed.
I've never seen you pissed, to be honest. You're so
Oh
jovial
gosh.
and like you're always
Yeah.
smiling and
I was
but
pissed. I was pissed. I got an anger streak. Don't worry. Like, oh yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. We could talk all day about the Enneagram, what
Mhm.
I've learned through that. But here's what I'll say. And wouldn't you know, that was he was right. He was absolutely spot on. In October, our Cobra benefits will expire. And
Mm.
we're going to come to like in the next 2-3 months, we're going to come to this intersection of what will we do for health insurance? And it's scary, but I know that we will figure it out.
That's the thing. Is like no matter what we go through, it's figure outable. I posted that on LinkedIn one time.
So
Everything
good.
is figure outable.
Yes.
And even if you don't have a plan, it's your mindset
Yeah.
of we're gonna figure it out. Like and I'm confident in you that you and your wife are gonna figure it out. Like I don't
We will.
everything up until this point, you said you have a child with special needs.
Hmm.
What are we gonna do? You
Yeah.
figured it out. That's
Yeah.
a big life change.
Yeah.
Because
It's a massive.
that's like long term,
Yeah.
but you're doing it.
And by the way, and he's 3. His name's Jack. Jack was born with this, but
Yeah,
Jack was
yeah.
born with paralysis from the waist down. And it's interesting, we see people who feel sorry for us out in public, like, oh, and they make comments, and it's like, this isn't the time to give people an education on how to communicate with someone who has disabilities.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
my wife's like, just keep your mouth shut. Like, they're like, oh, like, that's a really cool wheelchair. Like, oh my gosh, like, that must be so hard. It's like, yes, it is, which the empathy is, it's well intended. Yes, it is. And then they like see Jack put his brakes on. He's 3 years old. He's like doing 360s in his wheelchair, put his brakes on. He's climbing all over the place. He has figured it out because it's almost like he's too naive. He's too inexperienced to know that he's supposed to not figure it out because the weight of the world is on him.
Mm,
All right, we all go through middle school, and we learn to, from a communication standpoint, we learn to shield ourselves, we learn to beat around the bush, we learn to communicate really brashly. We all put strategies in place that probably at some point in time will no longer serve us as well
mhm.
as they used to. But it is all figure outable, and that's something I have to continue to like buy into,
Yeah.
truly, for me.
Yeah. I think too in the mindset of abundance
Mhm.
that everything we need we already have.
Yeah,
Even if we haven't discovered it yet, it's
yeah,
in there. The plan to figure out Cobra or insurance after it expires,
yeah,
it just has to come out. But we already live in a like there's nothing out there that we don't have that
yeah.
we need. Like we have everything we need right now. And I think just appreciating that as we go through things in life, because we all
Mhm.
have our different struggles and challenges, our history, our past,
Yeah,
trauma. We've
yeah.
all been through some
Oh my
type of
gosh.
trauma,
Yes, we
and
have.
being able to work through that, move through it, and realize that we have everything we need right now. It's not more money that we
Yeah,
need.
right.
We
Yeah,
sometimes put so much on that, but yes, that
yeah,
would be nice. But
yeah,
there is a plan, and I want to know what you figure out about Cobra, like, because
yeah.
I know it's going to
I'll
be,
tell you.
yes.
I have some really really harsh things to say about the entire process,
Oh,
but I'll leave it here. And I will say this, whatever. The soapbox I will get on is my wife and I are both trained as medical professionals. We both have master's degrees. We both practiced in the medical setting, and yet it is still so hard to figure out. And I just think that's a big, it's just BS. It's
yeah,
BS. Here's my message to any listener. Whoever is willing to disrupt the healthcare industry, I am encouraging you to do it. I'm
yeah,
encouraging you to do it because it is broken. It is
yes.
broken. It is jacked up. So anyway,
No,
that's my,
and I
and it
agree.
might be
Just
part of our mission.
hey, there you go. I mean, that's the thing is we have so many situations that happen to us. What can I do about it? How can I learn? How can I make this world a better place than how I found it?
Yeah.
I always I
Yeah.
just think about that. Like just, but you're
Yeah.
right.
I,
As a, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say along those lines, because some about the figure outable and abundance mindset. So I come at it from a faith orientation. So I
Hmm.
identify as a Christian, and so like, so my sort of my learning is, do I really want to hold the keys to all of this?
Hmm.
The answer is like, no, be careful what
Right.
you wish for. And so for me, it's about also how's this strengthening my relationship with God to trust on provision, which by the way is not give me every single thing that I need and want.
Yeah.
It's about there's a pastor who says this, like the quote is like, and I look, whether you believe in God or not, I think it still applies. But the quote goes something like, God, God may not be in the business of wanting you to have things go a certain way. He's probably more in the business of caring about who you are becoming in the
Hmm.
midst of that.
Hmm.
And I would say, just from a secular perspective, you can say the same thing. It's like,
Yeah.
geez, is it really about getting this, and that for myself? Or is it about who am I becoming in the process?
Right. And I think that as far as I don't share this on this podcast as much as the other podcast, but being a cancer survivor
Yeah.
is who am I becoming as I went through that trauma?
Oh, yeah.
And I am so proud of myself
Yeah.
on I don't think I would have quit my job had it not been for my cancer diagnosis, realizing I don't want to come here every, Monday through Friday from 7 to 4. And this was what happened. I could
Mhm.
not control what happened, but how I have grown and
Yeah.
developed myself was
Yeah.
a
And
choice that to
I
grow
just,
from it.
yeah, I just want to compliment you on that too. I know that's not why you're sharing this, but I was there. I walked,
Yeah.
I got to see you walk through that. And, I think right smack dab in the middle of our cohort, which was a 9-month program.
Hmm.
And, sorry.
It's okay.
Um, it was really hard to see you go through that, but what I was moved by. So for the listeners, right, we take a group of 30 people through a cohort. We beat them up a little bit. We ask them to go deep, and then we have them give a talk at the end of the cohort on stage in front of 60 people. And remember saying to Monica, "Hey, you totally opt out. I don't know where you're at in your treatment. I don't know what's going on for you, but you can opt out." And for those of you who know Monica well enough, you know what her answer was. She's like, "What time? Where do
Yeah.
I come to? How long can I talk for? And you came out there and you rocked that thing. And it was
Thank you.
really, really moving. I think we put you last
I
also
did go last.
because
Yeah.
we were like, all right, if we're orchestrating an event, this is the showcase talk. And so if you were in the Spark program, I'm sorry that your talk wasn't the showcase talk, but it
Well,
was
that
so
was the other
inspiring.
part is that it was a group effort, those
Yeah.
talks. And I was like, I want to go
Yeah.
by myself. And you were
Yes,
so
that's
nice
right.
enough. Yeah, you were nice enough to say,
Oh,
yes, you do whatever you want.
yeah.
And if
Well,
you
and it
don't,
was
go ahead.
no, well, and our design of that was, and I think this is important for the listeners. Our design of that was to give a group to support each other and to like, people want to know what are the rules around this? And like, this is life. Like, there are no rules in life. Like, break the rules a little bit. And people still played it pretty safe. That's fine. It was a corporate thing. People were in suits and ties. What I love was that was you clearly demonstrating a step out.
Hmm.
And myself and Jason, who we ran the program together, when you did that, we're like, my gosh, she took all the learning that
Hmm.
she needed to take from our 9 months together. And it just culminated in that event. And it was so
It
cool.
just the way it played out was wonderful. And I was
Yeah.
so grateful for that opportunity to talk about my learnings because preparing for that presentation, I was part of a group. And then we all met, everything, we were planning, what are we going to talk about? And then like the next day or that night, I don't remember, that's when I got the call
Mm,
that I had breast cancer.
mm,
And then I couldn't do the group thing. I was
yeah.
I just, nothing was resonating. And I'm like, I got to do this on my own.
Yeah.
And I have the YouTube video.
Yeah.
I saved that link because
Good.
you recorded it, and
That's right.
it's just moving. And then I see how far I've come. Again,
Mhm.
everything that happens to us, we get to learn from.
Yeah.
But it is a choice.
Mhm.
It is a choice. You can stay mad, you can stay bitter about the cards you've been handed, or you can say, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
What can I learn from this? I have learned patience. I have learned forgiveness
Mm.
for myself and other people, because like you mentioned with your son, people just say things because they don't know what to
They
say.
don't know. They
Yeah,
don't
same
know.
thing here. People will
No
be
ill
like,
will, but they
yeah,
don't know.
yeah. It's like they say
Family
things and I'm
members
like,
included, right?
totally, totally. But it's just like forgiveness. Like, you know what? They just don't know any better, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And we just become better people through everything we've went through.
Mm,
So thank you for sharing your stories,
yeah. Thank you.
about the struggles that you've had. I want to ask you, what with you, I know you were just in California giving a
Mhm.
keynote. What's going on out there with leadership? Like, what are some things leaders are
Mm.
struggling with? Um, and then ways that you again help other leaders. And is it just like executive leadership or
No, no.
okay.
So executive coaching is just, it's kind of a bad term, you might say, because everybody can be coached. I mean, not every. Sorry, let me take that back. Not everybody can be coached. You must be willing to be coached. You must be. And so the way I think of it is, I mean, I coach people all the way from managers, well, I coach individual contributors too, but all the way up to the C-suite, the C-suite. Um, Gosh, what's going on out there? I thought about this question and I was looking through my client roster and it's like, what are some of the themes we're hitting on,
Mhm.
individuals and teams? Here's the best pulse I have. There are companies who are trying, there are companies and leaders who are like, COVID, post COVID, let's go back to normal. I think that's a small minority, at least people who are saying that out loud at this point,
Mhm.
because it really moved us off center. We had to move off center. And so I think that that's one. I think the other one, though, are people and leaders who are maybe not saying we need to go back to whatever was normal before COVID. And they might be resisting that or feeling some resentment about how people are maybe feeling a bit more clear and empowered on what they want in life and from work.
Mhm.
And I know it's made it harder on middle managers for sure. And then I think there are companies, and I know there are companies and organizations who have embraced it to say, uh, in the talent pipeline, how do we continue to innovate and push the limits of who we are and how we serve our employees and our customers by showing up in a brand new way, despite the pain it takes to do so.
Yeah.
So whether that's fully remote or that's hybrid, or it's asking people to come back to the office, or it's hiring people who don't live in your state, whatever it might be. And so I think culturally and organizationally part of what I'm seeing. But I think on the individual level, it comes down to a couple things. People now being at a crossroads of, I'm paying attention to something that's happening in my gut or in my heart. And I just don't know how willing I am to A, explore it, and B, respond to it.
Hmm.
So, a sales executive I'm coaching, very successful. And he said, this ain't it for me. Everyone around me says, this is it for you, including family members. He's like, but this ain't it for me.
Hmm.
So he is, I had the pleasure of walking him through an 8-9 month journey of just working through the pressure to lead and then getting clear on what is my mission for the remainder of my life. And he has started to stair step his changes to move out of that corporate leadership role
Wow.
and actually do some work to become a counselor. And I'm so it's just been fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Like, I
like,
love that.
and
Just
it's
being
not
able to
like,
help people in that
yeah,
way.
like, and it's like it takes so much courage for him to not just stick to the things that he was working on. So or like the role and the things that were expected of him. So I think that's one thing. I'm seeing like a newfound energy around people wanting to get better. Right? We talked about range of how I show up. And that is really primarily the people I work with, not people who are having a performance issue, so to speak, and they need a change or they're gonna be fired. It's more about high performers and people who are accomplished at what they do, who are maybe looking to go from a 7 to an 8 or an 8 or a 9. And usually the margin is so slim, but the things that are holding them back are imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
That's one. Really good. People are saying I'm solid at what I'm doing. I'm a great leader, but I just don't believe them. So that's one. Um, Executive presence. Hey, I want to show up in a way that is more authentic, right? Executive presence isn't about, I want to show up and like command the room the whole time.
Yeah.
I want to show up with a more fully developed range of who I am. And then I think maybe the third one is, how do I swim upstream? In other words, is like, maybe toxic and like managing in a toxic environment is probably too strong for many situations. But it's like there are many leaders out there who just know I'm willing to be different, but it feels risky at this organization.
Hmm.
How do I navigate following my heart, or navigating being different, or navigating pushing back against just the need to get more and better results, and actually work to lead and develop the people who are under my reporting structure or
Wow.
even my peers? So I think that that's what I'm seeing out there. And there's a lot of people who are not willing to go back, whatever, that figuratively means.
I was going to ask figuratively or just, you know,
Both,
yeah.
but I think figuratively. And I think that those are the people who are probably finding a newfound purpose and fulfillment right now. I'm not saying it's easy. I mean, gosh, plenty of these people have like left their situations, or they've changed their work arrangement, or whatever. And it's not necessarily easy.
Hmm.
Um, but they know it might be a temporary dip in comfort in order to get to the other side of where they're betting or hoping they'll get to,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
leaving your W-2 and thinking you won't be able to provide for your family.
Yeah, exactly. Everything you've mentioned that you're seeing out there, this is what you're helping people with. Like,
Yeah.
this is what you're help. I think that's amazing, Jason. And it like
Thank
warms
you.
my heart that
Thank you.
you took that leap of faith, put a lot of trust out there
Mhm.
to continue to have a business, to help people, to raise your family, to be a husband, all of those things. I think it's so remarkable to see you. And I could talk to you all day.
I
Like
know. Well, we
I just want to
can.
hang out.
We will soon. We need to.
Yes, for
Yes.
sure. So I want to ask you a question that I ask the guests on the podcast. Like, looking back, just who you are, how far you've come from a speech pathologist to this CEO and founder to be able to leave your W 2 behind. What do you think that you would have needed to hear as a young Jason to see what he's been through, to see the challenges, to see how he's overcome it?
Hmm.
What do you think you would want to hear
Yeah.
or
Wow.
need to hear?
Ooh. It'd probably be this, a reassurance that It might not be pretty. Things will work out. I mean,
Mhm.
and I've heard that from a lot of people in my life. So I've had that, which I'm grateful for. I
Well,
think
it
some of
won't
that
be
is,
pretty. Like, it won't be
yeah,
pretty, yeah, but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It won't be. Yeah, it will not be pretty. And it's not linear. It's not
Mhm.
linear. I had people sharing that with me. So I think what I'd say is trust and believe the people around you that they might be right about you.
I love
You know, like,
that.
I mean, like best friends of mine are being like, dude, when are you going to leave the job? Like, you got this. And it was finally my wife, who's Shannon, who's like, uh, you're either doing it or you're not, but you can't talk about it anymore if you're not going to do it.
I love that.
Like, I got that. And here's the other thing I'd say is like, be kind to your younger self.
Mm,
Now that's like more, that's probably, more from counseling, but Kurt, the leader
mhm,
that I just respect so much, that was a part of his development of me was learn to be kind to yourself.
mhm,
So that equates to a few things: lifting pressure off of me, taking myself so seriously because I do, um, and leading me more toward that scarcity mindset. If I can be kind to myself, then a part of that is about slowing down, getting grounded, and in connection back to my heart and my body,
mhm.
which isn't um, separate from how I would coach somebody on executive presence in front of a speaking, a live audience while they're speaking either.
Yeah.
Same thing holds true. But those are what I would say to myself.
I think that's beautiful because those are things that we would all need to continue to say when we're going through something. It's not linear. Nothing about healing or life is just like, all right, I'm better now. And we're
Yeah.
taking off and
All set.
everything is
Good.
great. Yeah.
Until I'm
Yeah.
85. Yeah.
Yeah. And then being kind to yourself. And there's a course that I teach about how to quiet the voice in your head.
Mm,
And what I teach is that you have a roommate, and that
yeah.
roommate is the voice in your head
Yeah.
that throughout the day tells you you're not good enough. You need to lose weight. You need a haircut.
Mm,
You're not eating well enough. So
mhm.
if you turn that into a person,
Yeah.
would or a best friend, would you be friends with that person that's putting
Right.
you down throughout the day? Well,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
Mm-mm.
And
Nope.
so it makes you think about that voice that you hear and learning to quiet it and learn how to just be kind to yourself. Like, I don't know, this happened when I was diagnosed with cancer, but when I was bald, I would try to look at myself in the mirror and say how beautiful I was, and I couldn't do it. And
Mm.
and that wasn't true beauty. Do you know, like,
Yeah.
as far as the
Yeah. Yeah.
physical,
Yes.
and
Of
and so I had
course.
to work a lot through that, like I am beautiful,
Yeah.
no matter what I look like. And so it's that kindness and the messages that you send to your cells and your body is so important.
Mm.
So I want everyone to be kind. I want everyone to
Oh.
be kind to themselves and to just say one positive thing about themselves, because we are so quick to say we're not enough. We're not doing enough. We could be a better parent. We could be a better
Mm.
entrepreneur. We should be posting more or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But hey, we show up. We show up every day.
That's right. And that
And
just
this is
is,
it.
not to oversimplify it, but that can just be that internalization of what we heard as children. That's a
Yeah.
lot of the work I'm doing. Uh Trauma work,
Mhm.
as a 6-year-old, my parents were divorced. For the longest time I thought, well, there's nothing to that. Like, it's good. I had a great childhood. Yeah, yes, and let's go back and talk about what's a narrative we may have created based upon a void of something we weren't getting. And so a lot of that for me, I don't do counseling when I'm coaching. Coaching is forward focused, goal setting, but noticing
Mhm.
behaviors, patterns, and paradigms. But one of the things I'll say to every client is this is about turning, and I say it to myself, it's about turning your inner critic into your inner coach.
Yeah.
How how do you provide the guidance and encouragement, and a dose of reality, but it's just like it's got kindness to it.
Mhm.
And
Compassion.
yeah, and when that inner critic is roaring for me, then I'll make up all kinds of stories about interpretations about what people say to me and what they really meant by that when they didn't mean
Yeah.
anything with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this has been amazing. It's going to be so hard to cut this down. I usually try to cut down the podcast, but all
Yeah.
of this was so good. But I want to end. How can people work with you? Like, how can they find out more about you? Are you on Instagram? Tell us.
Yeah. Not heavy on Instagram. So LinkedIn is probably the number one social. It is this number one social you can find me. And trying to post frequently enough that I'm being useful and helpful to people out there. So you can find me on LinkedIn. My website is anchoredleadership.com. And you can schedule a call there. So I've got a 30-minute free call if anyone wants to schedule that. I offer workshops throughout the year. You can find more about that on LinkedIn, but also my webpage. And one that I will be coming up with here in the spring is called Present Your Best Self, which is a 2-day intensive boot camp style workshop that Monica, you know exactly
That's,
what that one's
that
like.
sounds really scary.
Yeah, you know what that's
Yeah.
like. We
Yes.
bring the video camera, we help people start
That's
to
what I was going to
develop their
ask you.
edge. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people would benefit from what I experienced with you with that video camera, showing up, giving feedback. They can clearly hear that you are amazing at communications and you've helped some of the best people in the organization improve their skills in leadership and speaking and communicating. So definitely I'll check that out. I'm
Yeah.
curious myself. Will that be on your website for people to sign
Yeah,
up?
I'll post it
Okay.
probably in the next maybe month or so. But yeah, maybe this will prompt me that later this week I'll put up a wait list for anybody who might be interested. I won't spam the heck out of you, but if you want to put your name down, it's a good chance. So I'll
Okay.
work on that, and maybe I'll have it over to you by the time you're putting show notes up.
Ooh, that would be awesome. Well,
Yeah,
Jason, thank you so much for your time. So honored to call you my friend. And I'm wishing you all the best and continued success with your career.
thank you. I've learned so much from you over the years, and I'm rooting for you. I know so many
Thank
people
you.
are. So
Thank
thanks
you,
for the chance
Jason.
to chat with you today.
All right, take care.
All right, see ya.